They're saying, quote, two things can be true at the same time. With us now, Congressman Mike Haridopolos, a Republican from Florida. It really is interesting. The president was asked directly who sent her. He said, I don't know. Tulsi Gabbard said the president sent me. Then the president changed and said Pam Bondi sent her. Why do you think it's so hard to get the story straight?
Well, I think the story you're pushing is much to do about nothing. What we're focused on, as you know, John, is the SAVE Act. We simply want to change the law, which I think your own polling shows that everybody wants photo ID.
Yeah.
Whether it be 2016 or 2020, people are worried about the campaigns. They want to make sure that your vote, my vote counts. One person, one vote. And as a history teacher, that is our basis.
First of all, if you're a history teacher, thank you for that. I think it's the best job in the world. Second of all, that's not what our polling wasn't on the SAVE Act. Our polling was on voter ID, showing an ID when you show up to vote. The SAVE Act actually requires a passport or a birth certificate when you register to vote. It's a much higher standard, and I haven't seen any polling on that. But back to my original question, I do think it matters if the president says he doesn't know why Tulsi Gabbard was there, and Tulsi Gabbard says that he sent her. Do you think he forgot?
Well, I think what you're just kind of engaged in is he said, she said. I don't really care about that kind of situation. What I do focus on, as you talked about earlier, is let's make sure that our elections are legitimate. And it's the reason why people want photo ID. It's the reason why we're pushing for it. I'm not sure how this will play out, but as you and I have been talking about for weeks now, we want to get the government open and then work on these budget issues, because we are seeing a nice little comeback with our economy. But the last thing we need is a government shutdown.
Congressman, just before I move on, can you at least agree that the stories are different? What Tulsi Gabbard said, what President Trump said. I mean, President Trump's own accounts are different here. Will you at least agree there's a discrepancy here?
Well, this is the first I've heard of this story. I don't follow this one as close as CNN does. But what you presented to us, it sounds like an issue where let's clear it up and move on to issues that people really care about.
You talked about the possibility of Homeland Security not being funded again as soon as 7 days from now. And the idea of coming together, what areas could you agree with on Democrats? I'm sure you've seen their list of demands. I'm sure you don't agree with all 10 of them. But what reforms are you willing to accept for in these immigration actions on the ground?
Well, first of all, I think we all agree that there's chaos in Minneapolis, and it's easily solved if the local law enforcement would just assist with the ICE agents getting rid of violent or sexual offenders. That said, one of the things that I do agree on is making sure we have body cameras. I think that's a good idea. It will show the true situation in Minneapolis. But this is about the only place in the country where you're running into these kind of problems, and this is why I'm so glad that Tom Homan went up there. You've seen the number of people engaged with ICE has gone down by, I think, like 700. That's a good sign. It means hopefully both sides are finally working together to get the bad guys off the streets.
You said you're glad Tom Homan went up there. Does that indicate you didn't think it was being handled well before he got there?
Well, I think Tom Homan is a professional. You've seen, of course, that not only does President Trump trust him, but before that, President Obama trusted him. And sometimes when in any negotiation, sometimes bringing in a different face brings a new opportunity. And it seems like there's more cooperation in Minneapolis. But let's be clear. The real issue here is that all they need to do is allow these bad people to get off the streets. These people were arrested. They were let back out on the streets. Now these ICE agents have to go in a very precarious situation. And as my dad is a former law enforcement officer, anytime you walk into a domestic situation like that, it's very challenging. You can only imagine a protester are there on top of it. I hope it can get better, but I think body cameras are one thing. The other thing, of course, would be let's get more training for these ICE officers. They're in a tough spot, and we want to make sure that they have all the skills necessary, because they got wives and husbands, kids. They want to make sure they're safe as well.
I'm sure that is an area where you could get agreement across the aisle on more training. Congressman, I want to ask you about a video that President Trump posted on Truth Social overnight. He's got millions of followers there. The video was about voter ID and election reform, but at the end, and I don't know if you can see this, it included a brief image of the Obamas, an overtly racist image of the former First Lady and the President as apes here. Now, it was at the end of the video. I don't know for sure whether the President saw it, but is this the type of message a President of the United States, under any circumstance, should be sending out to millions of people?
Well, I've not seen that video till you just showed it to me, but like what I've tried to do, and I tried to do it on your show today, the number one thing that we need to do is elevate the conversation. I want to have more transparency in government. It's the reason, even though I'm a conservative, I come on CNN. Let's have a thoughtful discussion about how we move forward in reforming our election systems. We have challenges overseas in Iran, and I hope we can elevate our debate in general in America, because what I saw recently this week in my own Financial Services Committee were Democrats yelling at our own Secretary of the Treasury because they're worried about losing a primary campaign.
But, and again, in the theme of elevating the discussion, and I know you weren't aware of that video. I don't think you were before we just showed it to you. But should it remain on Truth Social? Is that the kind of thing in the spirit of elevation you would like to see the president take down?
Well, I'll take a look at it right after our show. You kind of threw it at me right here. Yeah. But it's something, again, all I can control is what I can control. That's what my mom and dad taught me. And what I try to do is elevate the conversation. We had a great hearing, for example, this week with NASA. Bipartisan support, making sure we're winning the space race. I'm proud to be on that committee led by Dr. Gabbard and making sure that we are #1 in space. And we can have bipartisan cooperation on DHS as well, as you mentioned, with body cameras and more training. After all, we put it in the budget in the House already this year.
Yeah, no, I know you represent a good deal of the Space Coast. Two things I care about a lot, the space race and also history. Come back on. We'll talk about history class. Congressman Mike Haridopolos, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. All right, new this morning. Just a short time ago, Lindsey Vonn had a test run